My name's Steve and I'm reviewing a book, AI. Done. The book today I'm reviewing is... I don't have it with me. It's Nevernight. I've always hated when these reviewers insist on holding the book, just in case I, the viewer who clicked on the book review, titled book review, forget the book they're talking about. So thankfully they get to crane the book next to their face. Like a monkey with a banana or something. Yeah, I'm not doing that. It's called Nevernight. I don't have the book to put it on the shelf. Speaking of the shelf, these aren't my books. I haven't read any of them. They're Claire's books. Claire being Sarah's elder sister. I haven't read any of these books. And some of them I should have read, like Funk's Encyclopedia number 13, the boring one in the series. Yeah, haven't read Harry Potter. Gotta deal with that. Anyway, I'm reviewing Nevernight, which is by a fella called Jay Christoph, who's from Australia, like me. I went into this book really ready to hate it. Like, not low expectations, like I was prepared to hate this book. I've been hearing about this book for a good while. Like, I know a few people who worked on this Nevernight series, so it's always just kind of been in the background. But when I went onto the Goodreads, like everyone should when they're interested in the book, I saw 1-star reviews, and those 1-star reviews described the book as this boring, ponderous tome with purple prose and footnotes for world building. I thought, oh, that doesn't sound like my cup of tea at all. And the whole sexy assassin high school thing just makes no sense to me. So I thought, nah, that's not for me. To the point where when this book was available for 99 cents on Flaming Kobo, I was like, I can save the 99 cents. I won't bother. But for some reason, the book just staying in the back of my mind, and it was actually, and I've heard a few people say it's actually the fan art. Like, I mean, it's a well-liked series, but it's not a massive series like Brandon Sanderson or like Patrick Rothfuss's Kingkiller. But the fan art really made me think it must have really struck a chord with a lot of people, because the fan art was actually really quite professional looking and not just like something that I would draw up. And I thought, you know what, sod it, I'll download the preview. And so then at least I know that I'll read the preview and go, yeah, not for me. I went in, I thought, oh, that's an alright map. And I read it. I thought, oh, bloody hell, this is alright. So I ended up buying the thing. And then I ended up reading the whole thing in like 4 or 5 days. Which for me is well quick. Like, I take ages with books. So for me to sit down and get sucked into a book, I thought, well, it's done something right. And don't trust those people on Goodreads, because they don't know shit, do they? So what's this book about then, eh? It follows a girl called Mia Culver. At the start of the book is 16 years old, and she's performing her first kill as a assassin. And we go back in time and realise that when she was 10, and we realise that her family was wronged and her father was killed in front of her eyes at an execution, and her mum and little baby brother were taken away to the Philosopher's Stone, which is like the prison in this world. And she's the only one to escape, and she decides she's going to join the Red Church, which is this world's assassin brotherhood, and she's going to join that to get the necessary skills in order to avenge her family and kill the people who wronged her. This obviously is a pretty familiar type setup and revenge thing, but the reason why it is familiar is it's quite compelling for us readers to get into it. And I think the big plus for this book is that it's a simple story and it's told really well. It doesn't overreach with its world building or its characters or anything. It's largely a book with 2 key locations, and that's the Red Church and God's Grave. And God's Grave is like a fantasy version of Venice, and it's built from the bones of a dead god, which is pretty cool. And the map in the book is probably the best map I've ever seen, and the fact that it's probably a map that exists in world just adds to the immersion for me. A lot of authors could be fucked with a map, but I think it's pretty helpful. It's actually one of the things that pulled me in. I was like, bloody hell, I can actually see it. And since I'm one of these readers who can kind of lose where I am or not know what it looks like, to just know that I can go to God's Grave and go, okay, that's what that place kind of looks like, so now I can picture it a bit easier. The fact that it's such a small story told well means that it gives us, the reader, and for me in particular, I got to know the key characters, me in particular, and actually by the end of the book it accomplished its whole point, that I love the main character, I'm interested in the world, and I want to see where it goes in the second book, which is well done, because there's so many books where the author just can't wait to tell you everything and give you all the information in the first book, to the point where at the end I feel like I've just read a history book. So what draws people into this book, I imagine, is the fact that it's set in a school environment. School environments are popular across fantasy books in general, because why wouldn't they be? It's a place where your characters get to interact with other people and they get to learn about the world. It's just a great setup, and it's never going to go old. Like Harry Potter's done it, Kingkiller's done it, and both of them are really great. Well, apparently Harry Potter's good at it, because once again, I haven't read them. But when I was like, oh, it's an assassin school environment, and that's what threw me off, is that I struggle with the idea that there's a school for assassins where people are going to go sit in rows and listen to the lecturers like, yes, here's the best way to poison someone, everyone. Get your notebooks out. To me, it's a bit too ridiculous, because I am a teacher myself, so I actually have a qualified opinion on how maybe teaching should work. So when this book reveals that, no, the school isn't like a place where they spend 7 years at and there's like ranks, it's actually the last qualifier into becoming a blade for the Red Church. So Mia at this point has spent 6 years under tutelage of one person, and then has now ventured to this place to finally be qualified. Now, of the 30 odd students who are there, only 4 of them can become blades of the Red Church, which is just official assassins, and the rest of them, if they don't die, become hands, which just means they become like Alfred to Mia's Batman, if Mia is to become a blade. Who knows in this trilogy of books if Mia accomplishes her goal. So that was quite surprising. So when we're actually in the school, there's only 4 major lessons, and that's one that focuses on stealth and pickpocketing, one that focuses on sword fighting, another on like, what is it, sexing a person up, which I'm awfully good at, and then another one which off I am, and then the 4th one is poisons, which Mia's alright at. Mia's specialises in poison because her teacher specialised in poison. Consistency, which I quite liked. My favourite little bit was, and I was a bit worried, because I always get worried in these hero type stories that the hero is just too good at stuff inexplicably. Like there's a book called Blood Song where the main character is just good at stuff because he is. Like, and it's never really justified as to why at 10 years old he's already pretty good at things. So with this, I was ready for the moment where Mia just outwits her teacher and he's like, haha, you old f***, I'm cleverer than you. But instead, when this moment does happen and she manages to beat her teacher slightly in sword fighting using her magic, the teacher chops her arm off. So she instantly gets like punished for it. And that throughout the rest of the book, she kind of is lacking in the sword fighting area because her arms had to get reattached and she needs to work things out. So I actually quite like that aspect of it, that Mia isn't the perfect assassin walking in, and there's areas that other people are better at than her. I think what really stuck out to me the most here is the dialogue. J. Christoph has a really good sense of how each character sounds. So Mia grew up posh and wealthy, but now kind of has this fuck you attitude, but you can tell that the way she still speaks rather properly, and there's moments where she gets caught off guard or she'll default to this posh thing, and it almost feels like she's fronting this, don't you know I'm a badass, look at me smoke my cigarettes, that she's just kind of like a posh girl playing hard, and you can kind of tell that in the way she talks. There's her friend, love interest called Trick, who's kind of more of a, I don't know, it seems everyone kind of likes Trick, but I thought he was good, but like, yeah, he's kind of like just a nice lad, I thought. But the point is that all the dialogue is really well written, and I could tell who was speaking without having to worry about any of that, and it wasn't just like a wall of everyone sounding the same. And it was really concise and funny. Like, he has a lot of fun with it, and that it helps these characters stand out from each other, and I ended up quite liking all of them. The arc Mia goes through, I think she sticks very close to her roots as a character. I don't think she does anything out of character, and I think there's some very interesting things, like her magic. She's a Darken, which is someone who can manipulate shadows, but also has like a little shadow pet friend. In this one, it's like a shadow cat called Mr. Kindly, and I was a bit like, yeah, let's see this. But Mr. Kindly ends up being kind of a fun little character that for me felt like a fun little author insert, where the author gets to talk to his main character and she gets to talk back. At least that's how I felt it was. But her magic in it isn't really explained, but what's interesting about it is that Mr. Kindly drinks her fear, which kind of just means the whole book, and it gets pointed out that she has a crutch, that she hasn't really dealt with the pain of her family being destroyed, because Mr. Kindly came to her the day of that her family was killed. So the fact that at points where Mr. Kindly leaves her, has to go off somewhere to help someone, we get these moments where she feels quite weak and needs help. And I quite appreciated that she isn't just this, don't you know, I'm awesome, which can kind of happen a lot with some main characters. And particularly in a book like this that isn't YA, but definitely has that YA feeling to it. Like, girl goes off somewhere, like it kind of fits that sort of trope, which I think it's intending to do, because then it kind of plays with it a little bit. Also, in terms of just complete technical stuff, I felt that the writing was really easy to read, particularly with descriptions. Jade is a thing which I wish a lot of authors would do, where he doesn't describe exactly what a room looks like, he just kind of gives you the feel for it, which for me, I instantly had an idea of what every teaching room looks like, what the Red Church looks like, what Mia's bedroom looks like, and these are all locations that were in a lot, and I just understood straight away. He doesn't hang on a location if he's not going to be in there long, where some authors can't wait to tell you what someone has on their desk when we're just in there for one scene. Where this, I thought, it just helped me paint a picture, because I think that's the whole point of a book, is that you give me a bit, then I'll fill it in. Like, you don't have to tell me exactly what it looks like, because I'll just glaze over, because now you're trying to tell me exactly what it looks like, where I'm thinking it might look like this. So, really like that. Which actually segues into what a lot of people don't like, and that's the prose of the book. Prose are like basically the writing style, and the writing style in this book is controversial for a few people, based mainly on the fact that he uses a lot of metaphors and similes when describing things, which I went in ready. I was guarded up. I was ready to be pissed off at some metaphors and similes coming in out of nowhere. And at the start, yeah, they're kind of in there a bit. The ones that I saw out of context on the Goodreads reviews, I was like, that looks like a load of wank. Why would anyone write that? Who edited this book, and why would they let that through? But when I read it in context, like the one that was at the very top review of Goodreads is, the 3 suns on his chain tried to glimmer, but the cloudy sky said no. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? But in context of the scene and where we are, yeah, it's a bit wanky, but overall, it worked just fine for me. I'd say as the book goes on, and the further we get into it, the metaphors and similes die down, and of what I've read of the second book, he's basically almost kind of abandoned it a lot more, and it's for the better. There was 2 moments there where I was like, what the... like, this just took me out of the book completely, and why did he let this happen? There's one moment where he compares a man in an inn to a bar, and I even forget it because it was that overglazing, but it was like a layers of it. And then there was one where he compares an animal howling like a dog coming back home from work to find another dog in there smoking its cigarette and sleeping with his wife. He howled exactly like that. That to me was like, yeah, we didn't need that, but I can let it go, believe it or not. Like, not every book's perfect, because, look, I'm going to go in a bit, because there's a few people who seem to point out the fact that he holds on to these similes and metaphors the whole book, and they just can't get past it. One, someone said, was the silverware smile. I think that was brought up about 2-3 times, but I think when you are already annoyed by the metaphors and similes early on, when they kind of die down, the moment you notice one, you're ready to be pissed off at it. So just know, if you, going into the book, if you're thinking, oh, what about this metaphor similes, it calms down after about the first 100. After about the first 100 pages, it calms down. After about the first 7-8 chapters, it calms down. Another aspect is the footnotes. Now, footnotes are typically not used a lot, because they're essentially used so the author can just give you information about the world. So when I first heard this, that was actually the turn off for me. It was not the metaphors and similes. It was, oh, he hasn't integrated his world building into the text. Lazy bastard. Why would anyone do that? So I went in thinking that this was going to be what would kill it for me. Now, I read this book on my Kobo e-reader. So when going through and coming across a little footnote icon, I'd press on it, the footnote would pop up and I would read it. And I think that probably helped me a lot with not being annoyed by this, because, and I wish I had the book here, there are occasions where the footnotes take over a page, and like you read just a bit of the story, then there's footnotes. Now the author has said that these footnotes are for people who want that extra bit of information. And to be fair, he's right. All key information about the world is in the text, and it's a very character focused information, which I think probably comes from the fact that, and I'm going to sound a bit like a prick here, he knows who he's writing for. He knows he's going to be probably writing for people who've read YA books, and so he knows he really wants to focus on relationships, because everyone in the fandom seems to be just so obsessed with Mia and Trick. When I read the book and thought they're kind of just mates, and they do like each other, but it's not like a big romance. But he's aware that that's what people will probably grow onto. So the information about how the currency works, or how a certain sword style came into fashion, which isn't particularly relevant, but he wants to give it to us who do like to read lore and information. So I actually quite appreciate it. Yeah, a lot of it's quite pointless, but thankfully with the Kobo, and I would recommend to any of you, if you have a choice between owning it or having on an e-reader, maybe just have it on an e-reader, because then the footnotes, they don't take over a page, and if you're completely uninterested in them, you don't have to deal with them. And if you want, you just click on it and it'll pop up. So for me, it was fun, good information that isn't particularly required if you're not into it. Overall, I'd say that I really enjoyed this book, and was surprised at how strong it was as a first book in a series, because so many books nowadays in these big epic fantasies, they just far outreach. Their reach exceeds their grasp. Thank you. So, fuck off. I was pretty like, okay, this book's really doing well. I was blown away by how much I was enjoying it, and earnestly enjoying it, to the point where I went up to people who I chatted shit about the book to, going, fuck me, it's alright actually. Who'd have thought? So, when I came in to the bits that I didn't like, I was like, oh. And what I didn't like was the use of sex scenes. Look, I think how the whole body, how it comes about isn't what bothers me. I think Mia and the person she has sex with are so... It's Trick. You all know it's Trick. I think the build up to that moment makes sense for them. They don't just fall in love. They don't fall in love. It's kind of a sense of, this could have been a relationship, but the situation we're currently in means we can't have a relationship, and that makes sense. So they just kind of give into it. So for me, when it comes to sex scenes or people getting in a sex scene, what's important is the lead up to it, which tick here, and then what comes after it. I don't need to know exactly how she sucked his basically. So when I'm reading over that, I'm like, okay, the 16-year-olds are having fun. I don't need to know. And I think that for some people might be a bit weird, because he really goes into detail about it. And look, it's well written, smut. I'm not going to give, but for me it was just, I don't need this. Like, I'm more interested in how they are afterwards, because you want to show intimacy. To me, the most intimate moment probably would be what happens after he comes on her stomach. And what happens after that is she cuddles up to him. I don't know where the cum went, but I wouldn't want to be cuddled up to afterwards. So, I think what weirded me out first when I got, okay, she's described at the start as not being particularly attractive. Like, not as attractive as the legends say, because, like... I'm not sure we start with King Killer, but this book is written from I'm going to tell you the real story about this legend. And at the start of the book, we're told she's dead now. So it's like we're carrying up to this pale daughter, the great assassin. And the narrator says she's not as pretty as maybe the minstrels had said. She had like a broken nose, a fringe that she cut herself. She wasn't the most curvaceous as maybe what the songs made out. I was like, that's pretty good to know. Like, it makes it more relatable that she's not like the most beautiful person walking in the room. Until one of her teachers has a let's make you beautiful. And this isn't like let's chuck some fucking, what's it called, mascara on or something to her. It's more like, nah mate, let's get this old wizard over here to construct your body better. So we're going to give you some tits, fix that nose, fill out them lips, and give you some nice cheekbones. And the book kind of goes, she was prettier, but not like amazingly pretty, but she was prettier. And everyone in the school has this. And the logic is, being part of an assassin is that you've got to be kind of attractive. Like, it could be useful. Like, if you're an attractive person, it means people want to talk to you, and you might be able to get some information out of them. And okay, I'll go there. I'll accept that logic. But it just kind of sat weirdly with me, I guess. Like, we're going to make you beautiful. And Trick isn't like, oh, now you're beautiful, I want to shag you. He was actually kind of thrown off by it. So it is kind of challenged in the book, but I guess just the... Yeah, I don't know. Just kind of weirded me out a little bit. So, yeah, I guess that's like a technical thing, really. Like, I have no problem in that they had sex. They're 16-year-olds in a castle with other 16-year-olds. They're going to get a bit, like, I understand. They're of the age where stuff will happen. But the whole, like, she's good at sex because she was taught to be good at sex. Like, I don't know. I have a problem with quite a few of these books, and I'll go off on one. Quoth in fucking Wise Man's Fear, spoilers to that, when he goes to the Fae realm and shags the Fae princess while he's a virgin, and then she goes, how are you a virgin? You're ever so good. Like, to me, it throws me off that none of these authors can just give their virginal teenagers awkward first-time sex. They have to have sex worthy of the gods. Like, it, to me, it just sucks me out of it, because I don't know, it just have a bit of awkward sex, man. It's fine. It'd be kind of more endearing almost, but it's fine, whatever. I guess it's just like, you know, sex is how the two individuals come together. So you can't just have it be like, you know, she used the Lithian tongue technique on his end, you know. Saying that though, I think you should really read this book, everyone. No, overall though, I actually felt this book kind of... okay, I recently read a book called The Ruin of Kings, which was hyped the fuck up to being like, it's as good as J. Abercrombie, move over Brandon Sanderson, prose as good as Patrick Rothfuss. And I went in going, yeah, it's bollocks. It's too reaching, it's trying to hit every single fantasy fan there is, where this book kind of just goes, no, I know who I'm playing to, and I know who I want to aim for. And because he puts, and I'll be honest, because he clearly has put a lot of thought into the world he's made, and it's an interesting world that is very well thought out, and he has that lore information that wouldn't have came up anywhere else, actually sucked me in more and made me think the world is even more real. So I've already started reading God's Grave, and once again, I'm enjoying it straight away. It has that effect where, oh, I'll read this, and then I've read 2 or 3 chapters straight away. Like... where with other books, I'm ready to put it down. And I'll be honest, it's because it's the prose. I think it's the... it's hard to explain, really, why the prose is so good. I think it's because it's clearly he's having fun with it, and that he wants it to be a fun story. So my rating for this book is a 4.5 out of 5. I think for what it is and what it achieves, it does excellently. It's a short story told well, and by the end of the book, I love me as a character, I'm interested in the world, and I want to learn more about it, particularly with the second book called God's Grave, which gives me a sense that we're going to actually go into the area where Mia grew up, where since the first one was based in the Red Church mainly, so now we're going to go into God's Grave. I'm really keen to learn about the political aspects of this world, because I think it's really well thought out, and I can't wait to see where the story goes from here. So that's me signing off for the very first time on this video for Stephen's Stereotypical Book Reading Corner, filmed in Queensland, Australia. If you like Nevernight and you've already read it, chuck some comments down below so we can talk about how much we enjoyed it, because I'm surprised I did. If not, you can have an argument with me about it. I'll argue with you. You could subscribe if you feel like it. Yeah, go on, subscribe. Give it a like if you don't mind. And yeah, I'm sure I'll do this fairly regularly. Bye. Bye.